when my mother's voice cracked over the phone and she said, "Emma, we just can't do 12,000 right now." Something inside my chest folded in on itself like paper and fire. I was sitting on the edge of my hospital bed, the sterile smell of antiseptic burning my nose, the beeping of the heart monitor counting every second I was losing. I am Emma, 32 years old, a third-grade teacher who still believes in gold stars and second chances. But in that moment, the woman who once kissed my scraped knees was telling me my future could wait. I remember the exact weight of the silence that followed. My throat closed so tight I could only whisper, "Mom." The doctor said if I don't have the surgery in the next 3 weeks, the nerve damage might be permanent. I heard her sigh the way she used to when the grocery bill came too high. Then she handed the phone to Dad. Same answer, softer, like he was sorry but not sorry enough. $12,000. The exact amount my insurance left uncovered after my car accident last winter. The one that left me teaching from a wheelchair for 6 weeks and now left me facing the scalpel or a lifetime of pain. Before all this, life felt simple, almost sweet. I lived in a tiny one-bedroom in the city, the kind where the radiator clanks every morning like an old friend. I'd wake up at 5:30, brew coffee that smelled like burnt caramel, and grade papers at my kitchen table while the sunrise painted the walls pink. Every Sunday I drove to my parents' house in the suburbs. White picket fence, rose bushes mom babied like children. We'd eat pot roast, the gravy thick and salty, and laugh about nothing. Dad would pat my head the way he did when I was 10. "Our girl," he'd say. Jake, my little brother, would show up late in his grease-stained mechanic shirt, smelling of motor oil and cheap aftershave, cracking jokes until Mom scolded him for putting his elbows on the table. Jake was 28, broke as a church mouse, raising his daughter alone after his wife left. But he always split his last 20 with me for gas. That was our family, messy, loud, real. Then the clues started. Small enough I told myself I was imagining them. When I first called Mom about the MRI results, her tone shifted. "Oh, honey, that's terrible," she said. But there was a pause, like she was checking a calendar in her head. After that, calls went to voicemail more often. When I drove over unannounced one evening, the house smelled different. Fresh paint and new carpet. Mom hugged me quickly, her perfume too strong, like she was covering something. Dad avoided my eyes, busying himself with the newspaper. I asked gently if they could help even a little. Mom changed the subject to their upcoming anniversary trip to the lake. "We've been saving for years," she said, her fingers twisting her wedding ring. I left with a knot in my stomach and told myself they were just stressed. Parents get old. They worry about their own bodies failing. I pushed the doubt down like I always had. The discovery came on a rainy Thursday, the kind where the sky feels personal. I had gone to their house again because the hospital was demanding a deposit. I let myself in with the spare key, calling out like always. The living room was empty, but I heard voices from the kitchen. Mom and Dad arguing in low, sharp tones. I froze behind the doorway, rain dripping from my coat onto the tile. "We have the money, Robert. The CD matured last month." Mom hissed. 12,000 is sitting right there." Dad's voice was tired. "It's our retirement cushion. Emma's 32. She should have insurance that covers this. We bailed Jake out twice already this year." My legs went weak. I stepped into the light, their faces drained of color. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. "Emma, we didn't know you were here." I don't remember the exact words I said next, only the heat behind my eyes and the way my voice shook. "You have it. You've had it. And you told me no." Dad tried to reach for me. "Sweetheart, it's not that simple." But it was. $12,000 that could keep me walking, teaching, living. And they chose their cruise, their cushion, their peace over their daughter's spine. I stood there in their kitchen doorway, rain still dripping from my sleeves, pooling on the floor like tears nobody wanted to acknowledge. Mom's face crumpled first. She reached for the dish towel like it could shield her. Dad just stared at the table, the vein in his temple pulsing the way it did whenever he was cornered. "How long have you had it?" I asked, my voice so quiet it barely carried over the refrigerator hum. Mom whispered, "The certificate matured in January. We were going to tell you when things settled." Settled. The word tasted like metal. "My legs are settling into permanent damage while you're planning lake sunsets." Dad finally looked up. "Emma, we love you, but we've worked 40 years for something to fall back on. Jake's always needing help, child support, daycare, the truck repairs. We've given and given. We thought you'd understand." I laughed once, sharp and broken. "You thought I'd understand watching my future slip away, so you could feel safe?" I turned and left before they could answer. The screen door slapped shut behind me like a period at the end of a sentence nobody wanted to finish. I drove home through sheets of rain, the windshield wipers screaming every few seconds. My phone buzzed. Mom, then Dad, then Jake. I let them all go to voicemail. That night I couldn't sleep. The pain in my lower back flared every time I shifted, a hot wire running down my leg. I sat on the floor beside my bed because the mattress felt too soft, too forgiving. Around 2 in the morning my phone lit up again. Jake. I answered this time. Em? You okay? His voice was rough, like he'd been crying or smoking or both. No, I said. Are you? A long pause. Mom called me, told me what happened. I'm coming over. Don't. I just want to be alone. Too bad. I'm already in the car. 20 minutes later he was at my door, soaked, holding 2 styrofoam cups of gas station coffee and a paper bag that smelled like cinnamon rolls. He didn't say anything at first, just sat beside me on the floor, handed me a cup, tore open the bag. We ate in silence while the rain tapped the window like impatient fingers. Finally he spoke. They offered me $5,000 last month. Said it was for Mia's preschool tuition. I took it because she needed new shoes and the landlord was threatening eviction. I didn't know it was part of the 12. I looked at him, really looked. His eyes were red-rimmed, stubble dark against pale skin. The same little brother who used to steal my Barbies and then cry when I yelled at him. You didn't know? I repeated. I swear, Em. If I'd known they were choosing between your surgery and their savings account, I would have told them to keep every cent. I believed him. Jake had never been good at lying. His ears turned pink every time he tried. We sat there until the coffee went cold. Then he said the words that changed everything. I've got $8,000 saved. It's not much, but it's every overtime shift, every skipped meal, every weekend I didn't take Mia to the park so I could work the extra bay at the shop. I was going to use it for a down payment on a little house someday. But you need this now. I shook my head so hard it hurt. Jake, no. That's your future. Mia's future. He reached over and squeezed my hand, hard, the way he used to when we were kids crossing busy streets. You're my future too, Em. You're the one who stayed up helping me study for the GED after I dropped out. You're the one who loaned me money for Mia's crib when I had nothing. You've carried me more times than I can count. Let me carry you this once. Tears burned my eyes. It's still 4,000 short. I know, he said, but it's a start, and I'll figure out the rest. Sell the truck if I have to. Sleep on the couch at the shop. Whatever it takes. I cried then, quiet, ugly sobs that made my whole body shake. He pulled me against his shoulder, grease and rain and cinnamon all mixed together, and let me fall apart. The next morning I woke up on the couch with a blanket over me and a note on the coffee table in Jake's messy handwriting. Went to talk to the folks. Don't move. I love you. I didn't know what he planned to say. I only knew that for the first time in weeks the knot in my chest loosened just a little. I didn't hear the full conversation until later that afternoon. Jake came back to my apartment around 4, his mechanic's hands still black at the edges even though he'd scrubbed them raw. He dropped onto the couch beside me, smelling faintly of brake fluid and exhaustion. They're wiring the full 12,000 tomorrow morning, he said, voice flat like he'd run out of emotion to spend. I blinked. How? He rubbed the back of his neck. I told them straight. No yelling. Just facts. I said if they didn't cover your surgery, I'd never step foot in their house again. I'd take Mia and we'd disappear from their lives. Told them they could keep their retirement cushion and explain to their granddaughter why her aunt can't walk to her school plays anymore. My throat tightened. Jake! You didn't have to. I did. He met my eyes. Because they were counting on me staying quiet. Counting on both of us forgiving them the way we always have. I'm done being the easy one to disappoint. I reached over and rested my head on his shoulder. The room was quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing outside. For the first time in weeks, the pain in my leg felt distant, like it belonged to someone else. The money arrived the next day. Exactly 12,000. Transferred with a memo that read only, for Emma's surgery. Love, Mom and Dad. No phone call. No visit. Just numbers moving across the screen. I stared at the notification until my vision blurred. The surgery happened 2 weeks later. I woke up in recovery with a dry mouth and a nurse telling me everything went well. Jake was there when my eyes focused. He'd slept in the waiting room chair all night. Mia's stuffed rabbit tucked under his arm because she'd insisted, Auntie needs something soft. He smiled the tired, lopsided smile I'd known since we were kids. Doc says you'll be running circles around 3rd graders by next fall, he said. I laughed, even though it pulled at the stitches. I'll settle for walking without crying. Months passed slowly the way healing does. Physical therapy 3 times a week, the smell of rubbing alcohol and sweat-soaked mats. Jake drove me every session, Mia in the back seat singing off-key nursery rhymes. My parents didn't come to the hospital. They sent a card with a grocery store bouquet and a check for another 1,000, for whatever you need. I didn't cash it. I framed the card instead. Proof that sometimes love arrives too late and in the wrong envelope. Word spread quietly in our small family circle. My aunt called me crying, said she'd never seen Mom so ashamed. Cousins texted apologies on behalf of the older generation. Jake stopped going to Sunday dinners. He started his own tradition, brunch at my place every weekend. Burnt toast, over-easy eggs, Mia's sticky fingers on everything. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. One evening, about 8 months after the surgery, I really walked down the hallway to my classroom for the first time since the accident. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The smell of crayons and whiteboard markers wrapped around me like a hug. My kids had made a banner, "Welcome back, Ms. Emma," taped crooked across the door. I stood there, cane in one hand, tears in the other, and felt something shift inside me. Not anger anymore, but a quiet, steady strength. My parents still live in that white house with the rose bushes. We speak sometimes, short calls, careful words. They ask about my leg. I ask about their garden. Forgiveness isn't a single moment. It's a slow thawing. I haven't forgotten what they chose, but I've stopped letting it choose me. Jake and Mia moved into a little duplex last spring. He bought it with the money he'd saved before he gave it all to me. Every time I visit, I see the down payment dream he sacrificed sitting on my kitchen table in the form of thank you cards from my students. He says it was worth it. I believe him. Life doesn't always balance the scales the way we want. Sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones who leave the deepest scars. But family isn't just blood. It's the ones who show up when the hospital lights are too bright and the bills are too heavy. It's the brother who trades his future for yours without a second thought. If you've ever had to choose between saving yourself and saving someone you love, or if you've ever been the one saved, tell me in the comments. What would you have done? Would you have given everything the way my brother did? Thank you for listening to another broken trust story. If this one touched you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Take care of the people who matter most before life forces the choice. Until next time.